She was dying.
You are not even worthy of cleaning my shoes.
He said nothing back.
Drink this tonight. By morning, you'll glow like you've never glowed before.
You really think of everything.
More than you know.
Months later, her life would depend entirely on the one man she swore wasn't fit to touch her.
In the village of Eziama, mornings always began the same way. Roosters crowed before the sun was fully awake. Smoke curled lazily from cooking fires. Women balanced pots of water on their heads along the red earth paths, and children ran barefoot through compounds that had not changed in generations. But nothing in Eziama ever stayed quiet for long when Akuna Nwakeo stepped outside. She was, without argument, the most beautiful girl the village had ever produced. Smooth, dark skin that seemed to glow even under the harshest sun, eyes that could hold a room hostage, and a smile she rationed carefully, only for the men she believed deserved it. And in her eyes, almost no one in Eziama did.
Good morning, Adaeze. You are looking well today.
Morning. Face your farm.
She mocked the farmers who greeted her on their way to the fields, calling their calloused hands proof of a wasted life. She laughed at the mechanic who offered to carry her basket, telling him the smell of engine oil was the smell of poverty itself. Traders, drivers, apprentices, she had a sharp word ready for every one of them, delivered with a smile so practiced it almost looked like kindness until the words landed. But no one endured her tongue quite like Zikadibia or Bidia. Every morning, Zikadibia rode the same one bicycle down the same dusty road, calabashes of fresh palm wine strapped carefully behind him, off to sell what he had tapped before sunrise. He was a humble man, respectful to everyone, quick to greet elders and children alike. When he crossed paths with Akuna in the village square, he always offered her a cup of the sweetest wine from that morning's harvest.
Good morning, Adaeze. Fresh wine, still sweet from the tree.
Keep your wine, Tapper. Some of us are meant for better things.
Why so harsh?
You wouldn't understand.
Offered her a cup of the sweetest wine from that morning's harvest, not out of foolishness, but it was simply his nature to be kind. When he gently joked that perhaps one day she would let him hold her hand, the whole square fell silent, waiting for her reply.
You? Hold my hand? You are not even worthy of cleaning my shoes.
Zikadibia said nothing. He only lowered his eyes, climbed back onto his bicycle, and rode on, the soft rattle of calabashes fading behind him. It was not the first time, it would not be the last, and still, not once did he speak an unkind word about her in return, a quiet grace that the village noticed, even if Akuna never did. At home, she boasted freely to her mother, Mama Ifi, about the husband she intended to have one day.
Mama, I did not come into this world to marry poverty. When my husband comes, he will come from Lagos, in a car, not on a bicycle.
Mama Ifi only sighed, the way mothers do when they have said the same warning too many times already.
My daughter, beauty fades faster than a rainy season. Character is the only roof that never leaks.
Papa Namdi, her father, said nothing at all that night. He simply shook his head and returned to his thoughts, the way a man does when he has already accepted that his daughter must learn some lessons the hard way. It was not only strangers who felt her scorn. Even a wealthy young man from a neighboring compound, one of the few in Eziama who could rival the city boys in style and money, had once tried his luck with her. She had entertained him for a season, enjoyed his gifts, and allowed him to parade her proudly through the market. Then, the moment she grew bored, she discarded him as easily as an old wrapper, without explanation or apology. It was simply how she operated. Admiration was currency, and she spent men freely. Then, as it did every year, the rhythm of Eziama shifted. The village notice board announced the coming of the 7-day cultural festival, the one time of year when sons and daughters return from Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt and beyond, bringing city money and city stories back to the village that raised them. The drummers began rehearsing, the women began preparing food, and Akuna, more than anyone, began preparing herself. The festival opened with drums that seemed to shake the very earth of Eziama. Masquerades danced through the square. Children screamed with delight. For 7 days, the sleepy village transformed into something almost unrecognizable, loud, colorful, and full of possibility. Buses and private cars rolled in one after another, each one dropping off relatives dressed in their finest, embracing mothers they had not seen in a year. But one arrival silenced the entire village square. A gleaming black SUV rumbled down the dusty road, its engine purring in a way no vehicle in Eziama had ever sounded. Dust rose behind it like a small storm, catching the golden afternoon light. Whispers spread even faster than the dust. "Who is this?" villagers asked one another, necks craning for a better look. The door opened and Obiora Chukwukwa stepped out like a man who had never once been told no in his life. Designer shirt, gold wristwatch flashing in the sun, sunglasses pushed casually onto a head of slicked back hair. A smile built, it seemed, for exactly this kind of entrance. Across the square, Akuna's eyes found him instantly, and something in her chest told her that everything she had been waiting for had just arrived. When the drummers called the crowd into the dance circle that evening, Akuna moved to its center, and for the first time in years, she danced not for the village's approval, but for one man's eyes alone. It worked exactly as she hoped. Obiora approached her at the edge of the circle, complimenting her with a kind of practiced charm that made every word feel custom-built for her ears only.
A village this small should not be allowed to hide a woman this beautiful.
Maybe it was hiding me for you.
Over the following days, he painted her a picture of Lagos she had only ever imagined. Towers of glass, shopping malls with air conditioning cold enough to need a sweater, a wedding fit for a magazine cover.
Lagos would treat you like the queen you already are. Come with me when the festival ends.
You barely know me.
He gifted her a gold bracelet on their second meeting, sliding it onto her wrist himself, as though it had always belonged there. She wore it everywhere after that, holding her arm just so whenever anyone was watching. Not everyone was fooled. From the shadows near the palm trees at the edge of the festival grounds, Zikadibia watched the bracelet catch the torchlight, his expression giving nothing away. He said nothing to anyone. It was not his place. And besides, no one would have believed him over a man in a black SUV. Her parents tried once more to reach her.
My daughter, a shiny wrapper does not always contain good food.
Please slow down small.
Mama Ifi begged her to slow down, to be careful, to remember that festivals end and strangers leave. Akuna waved away every word.
You people don't want me to be happy. Obiora is not like this village men. He is different.
What she never saw, what no one but Obiora himself ever saw, was the moment his charming smile fell away when he stepped outside the torchlight alone to check his phone, the practiced calculating look of a man counting his next move, the same way he counted moves in villages before this one. On the final night of the festival, he handed her a small corked bottle, a special tonic from Lagos.
Drink this tonight. By morning, you'll glow like you've never glowed before.
You really think of everything.
More than you know.
It will make you glow even brighter for when I introduce you to my family. She drank every drop that night alone in her room, smiling at her own reflection, already imagining the life waiting for her beyond Eziama. Tomorrow, he had promised her, I will speak to your father properly. Wait for me. She promised she would be ready. She was ready. She dressed in her finest wrapper the next morning and sat by the gate, watching the road for the sound of an engine that would never come. By midday, her calls to his number met only silence.
Network, please. Network, please connect.
Then finally a cold mechanical voice. The number you are calling is switched off. That afternoon, a trader returning from a neighboring town brought news that spread through Eziama like wildfire.
That same man, gold watch, black SUV. He did this in my village too. He collects money, jewelry, promises marriage, and disappears.
Akuna stood frozen at the gate as the words reached her, and the gold bracelet suddenly feeling heavier than any stone she had ever carried. But the humiliation of being deceived was only the beginning. Days later, something far worse began to settle over her. She stopped eating properly. Her once sharp eyes grew dull and distant. She wandered through the market as though lost in fog, forgetting simple words, stumbling over her own feet. One evening, her younger cousin found her crouched behind the family compound, quietly eating handfuls of red clay from the ground, a craving she could neither explain nor control. Mama Ife's scream brought the whole household running.
Namdi, come quickly. Something is wrong with our daughter. Namdi, hurry. Look at her. She's not well.
Papa Namdi did not wait for morning. He ran through the dark that very night to fetch Dibia Okwosa, the village herbalist, whose knowledge reached further than any hospital in the nearest town. The old man knelt beside her, studying her sunken eyes, her trembling hands, and the faint smell of soil on her breath. He did not need long to understand.
This is not sickness of the body alone. Someone gave her a bitter herb disguised as beauty. I can prepare the antidote, but I alone cannot give it.
By morning, the whole village had heard. Neighbors gathered at the square, murmuring prayers and worried questions, some even whispering of witchcraft, until Dibia Okwosa firmly corrected them. This is a man's poison, not a spirit's curse. Do not spread fear where there is only an explanation. Inside the family compound, Akuna lay trembling on a mat, too weak now to lift her own hand, her once proud voice reduced to a whisper. Time, the herbalist warned, was not on their side. The poison would only grow stronger, and once it fully settled, no antidote in Eziama would reverse it. Word reached Elder Uzoemena within the hour. He called the elders to gather at once beneath the great village tree, where every serious matter in Eziama was settled. Beneath that tree, Dibia Okwosa addressed the anxious gathering.
This antidote will not work in just any hands. It must be given by someone who wishes her well with a truly clean heart.
A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Every man present searched his own heart and found it was not so simple to claim goodwill toward a woman who had mocked half the village at one time or another. Elder Uzoemena's eyes moved slowly across every face. The farmer she had mocked, the mechanic she had insulted, the traders she had dismissed, until he remembered the one man who, no matter how deeply she had cut him, had never once spoken a bitter word against her. Zikadibia,
The palm wine tapper, step forward. If any man's heart is clean toward her, it is yours.
a murmur rippled through the crowd as Zikadibia stepped forward, calm as ever. Some doubted he would agree, remembering how publicly he had been shamed. Others simply hoped, remembering how patiently he had always carried it.
I have never wished death or shame on anyone. If my hands can save a life, they will. I ask for nothing in return.
I ask for nothing in return. He and Dibia Okwosa walked through the afternoon, grinding herbs and boiling roots into a pale antidote. When Zikadibia entered the small room where Akuna was lying, he carried no pity in his eyes, only the same quiet care he had always shown her, even when she gave him none in return. Her dulled eyes widened as she recognized him, shame rising in her chest sharper than any fever. Of everyone in the village, it was him she had wounded most, and it was him who had come to save her.
Drink small, small. You will be fine. No one here wishes you harm.
Through that afternoon, color slowly crept back into her cheeks. Her breathing steadied. Zikadibia stayed through the night, changing the coal cloth on her forehead, refilling her water, and asking nothing of her family except that she recover. Days later, she sat outside in the morning sun, thin but steady, surrounded by a family that could finally breathe again. She watched him quietly sweeping the compound floor and felt for the first time real respect for the humble hands that had saved her life. Eldao Zemena soon reminded her of the old village custom.
You remember our custom, my daughter. Whoever saves a life when all hope is lost is honored as family. The village expects a marriage.
I understand, Elder.
Good.
That night, alone, Akuna cried. Not because tradition demanded a husband she had not chosen, but because she finally understood exactly how much she did not deserve him. The next morning, she did something the old Akuna never would have done. She went to find him, not to argue, but to speak honestly, perhaps for the first time in her life. In front of a small gathered crowd, her voice trembling.
Zikadibia, I insulted you more times than I can count, and still you saved my life. I am sorry, truly, deeply sorry.
I do not want a wife because tradition says so. I only want a wife who will respect me, nothing more, nothing less.
And in that moment, she chose him willingly for exactly who he was. Married life humbled her further. She walked to roosters and firewood smoke instead of the Lagos towers she had once imagined. She fumbled with calabashes at the washing basin, splashing more water onto her wrapper than into the bowl. And Zikadibia taught her patiently, without a hint of mockery. She rode behind him on the very bicycle she had once mocked, watched him climb effortlessly to the top of towering palm trees, and felt more and more each day something she had never once given him before: genuine love. Then, one ordinary morning, 2 SUVs and a heavy truck rolled through their modest gate. Businessmen in tailored suits stepped out, addressing her husband with a deep respect she had never shown him herself. Oga Zikadibia once said, "The hotel chain in Enugu wants to double their order this quarter." Akuna stood frozen in the doorway as Zikadibia calmly discussed trucks, warehouses, and supply routes across 3 states. While the businessmen left, he turned to her. "Villages," he told her. "I supply hotels and restaurants across the state. The trucks, the warehouses, the land, they are all mine. I dressed simply on purpose. I wanted a wife who would love the man, not the money, and I found her long before she knew who I was." Every insult she had ever thrown at him played back in her mind at once. She held him tightly, tears falling freely, not from shock alone, but from a gratitude too deep for the careless words she once used so easily. Word of his wealth spread through Eziama within a day, and almost overnight, women who had never once glanced his way began finding reasons to greet him warmly, glancing sideways at Akuna as they did. For a moment, the old Akuna stirred inside her, with the urge to step forward and put every one of them sharply in their place. But she caught herself, remembering exactly where that old pride had once led her. When one bold village girl stepped directly in front of Zikadibia one afternoon in the market, touching his arm and teasing that a man like him should not walk alone.
Zikadibia, You have been hiding all this wealth from us. A man like you should not walk alone.
Ah, you flatter me.
It's true.
Akuna did not shout. She did not fight. She simply stepped forward and said calmly,
He has a wife already staying by him. You are welcome to greet him as a neighbor. Or don't you know I am his wife?
The girl withdrew her hand at once, more unsettled by Akuna's calm than she would have been by any argument. That evening, Akuna and Zikagibea walked together through the palm groves he had built his quiet empire upon, the sunset painting the fronds in gold. Later that week, she gathered the young girls of the village beneath the same tree where the elders had once decided her fate, and she told them plainly,
The greatest poverty is not having no money. It is looking down on people whose future you cannot see.
And as the sun set over Eziama once more, the proud beauty and the humble Tapa stood together, not as a cautionary tale the village would soon forget, but as a marriage the village would never stop admiring.
Thanks for listening and watching. Subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.